Everyone is much more wide awake than earlier at Summer's Point. It's a little too early sometimes, I think. But it is a great day. Well, over the past couple of weeks, we've been talking and learning about how to be brave. By first, not being anxious and to breathe, remember? Secondly, we need to focus on what's true and not on what distracts us. And last week we learned about having faith no matter what the report says. So as we close out this sermon series on how to be brave, we're going to look at how we can see God's strength and supply through our weakness and need. We're going to learn how to see it through. Who here has ever been told to see things through? Anyone? Yeah? Yeah, sometimes it's when you don't really want to. Maybe it's a time when it's tough and you didn't think or you don't think you could make it. It could be a rough week, it could be a college course or a class project, or maybe you have kids and you just have to see it through. And you think to yourself, they're almost 18, they're almost 18, they're almost 18. We had to go to 25 earlier. They're almost 25. Right? Yep. But when thinking about seeing it through, I'm reminded of the song called Your Love Never Fails. And the second verse goes like this. The chasm is far too wide, I never thought I'd reach the other side, but your love never fails. And sometimes, maybe a lot of times, we may think whatever we're going through, that chasm is far too wide. But we need to see it through, because God will never fail us. Because God didn't bring us this far to just bring us this far. When I was growing up, there was a movie that my brothers and I really loved to watch, and it was called The Sandlot. Who here has ever seen The Sandlot? You like it? I see some thumbs. It was a pretty good movie. It came out in the early 1990s, but the movie itself was set in the 1960s. And it follows a character by the name Scotty Smalls, who moves to a new town with his mom and stepdad. And he doesn't really know much about sports. But he stumbles upon a group of kids playing baseball at the local sandlot. And they kind of take him under his wing, and again, he doesn't know how to play sports, so they teach him, and one of the famous lines is one of the kids constantly says, "You're killing me, Smalls," every time he makes a mistake. But again, he doesn't know much about baseball. Well, Scotty learns, though, that this team constantly loses baseballs because there's a back fence, and every time they hit a home run, the ball goes over the fence into the junkyard of Mr. Myrtle's. And it's protected by a big, giant dog named the Beast, who, rumor has it, has already eaten a kid who, foolishly enough, went over that fence. Well, one day, the team leader, Benny, his name's Benny, he hits their last baseball over the fence. But Scotty has an idea so they can still play baseball. He runs home, grabs a prized baseball from his stepfather's collection and brings it back so they can play some more. I already hear some moments out there. Well, unfortunately, that ball too is hit over the fence and the ball is lost. And Scotty reveals that this baseball is special. He needs to get it back for his stepfather. And unknowingly to the team, it's signed by none other than Babe Ruth. I know. It's painful. And the kids know that it's painful too. They know they have to get this ball back. So the team constructs a progressively complex series of machines to try and retrieve the ball through the fence, with each time ending in failure. And as the ball grows increasingly damaged due to the Beast, all hope for retrieving that ball seems lost. Now, in our reading today in 2 Kings chapter 6, we hear the servant being afraid, saying, "Oh no, my Lord, what shall we do? A Elisha and the servant were surrounded. The servant thought, sure enough, they were done for. Elisha then prayed, and we should really think and pay attention to how he prayed. He said, "Open his eyes, Lord, so that he may see." And the Lord opened the servant's eyes. He looked and saw that the hills were full of horses and chariots of fire. See, God's armies were surrounding Elisha's enemies, not Elisha and his servant. When troubles like fear and anxiety seem to surround us and we don't feel brave, we can look through them to see that God is right on top of those fears, right on top of those anxieties. If you put yourself in the shoes of these boys and you're trying to retrieve a signed baseball from the great Bambino himself, you would try to anything to get that baseball through that fence, away from the beast. Often we wish to do the same thing throughout our lives. We think that God's army should be between us and our enemies, like a fence would be. But God works in ways that we don't always see. God surrounds us from the outside in, assuring us that He is in control of everything, even though when we feel we are attacked. See, Elijah didn't pray to God to send help. He prayed for the servant to see that help was already there. Do we see through the fear? Can we see that help has already come? Well, after coming to terms with the fact that the boys couldn't retrieve the baseball, Scotty prepared for the worst, and even that same night, again, the team leader, Benny, has a dream that Babe Ruth comes to him and encourages him to follow his heart. And he's told by Babe Ruth, most people never take a chance, either because they're too scared or they don't see it. Babe Ruth ends the conversation by telling Benny, someone is trying to tell you something. If I were you, I'd listen. So inspired by his dream, the next day, Benny climbs the fence, even though his team doesn't want him to. He climbs the fence because he found the bravery. He found the strength. Well, in the letter to the Philippians, Paul also proclaims that he can do all things through Christ, who gave him strength. That his needs were supplied in and through Christ. Paul knew that God was always with him. And we do see this in today's scripture. Philippians 4:12 and 13, Paul writes, I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation. Whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want, I can do all this through Him who gives me strength. How many of us can say the same thing? Do you know what it is to be in need? Do you know what it is to have plenty? I know what it is to be hungry. And I also know what it is to be well-fed. Maybe we do know what these things are, but we just can't see through them to see God on the other side. Well, Psalm 121, verse 1 and 2 says, I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. When we are in need, God will supply. So as the dust settles and Benny gains his footing, he sees the baseball in the mouth of the beast. And the beast is this big English Mastiff. Do you know what type of dog that is? It's a huge dog. Exactly. No wonder his name was the Beast. So he sees the dog with the ball in his mouth, and the dog drops it, and it kind of rolls towards Benny. So spaghetti western music starts to play, and you see Benny look closely at the baseball, and then a close-up of the dog sniffling. And then, like a flash, both Benny and the dog chase after the ball. Benny slides, grabs the baseball, doubles back, and hops back over the fence, back to safety, to the sandlot. as he starts to dust himself off, still with the ball in hand, everything gets quiet, and then the boys realize, in slow motion, this big English Mastiff is hopping over the fence towards their safety, and then a chase ensues. Who has ever had this happen to you? Have you ever thought that you cleared the hurdle, cleared the fence of whatever you're struggling with? You clear the fence and you think you're back onto safe ground, only to realize you have this big English Mastiff chasing after you. And it doesn't have to be a dog chasing after you. It could be fear, depression, addiction. And we end up constantly running around, wondering how we're ever going to be safe. Benny ends up doing this. He leads the beast on a lengthy chase around the neighborhood, which ends back at the sandlot, and the fence ends up collapsing on the dog. So, overcoming their fear, Benny and Scotty free the dog and return him to his owner, Mr. Myrtle. Now, in hindsight, all they really had to do was go around the block and knock on the door and ask for their baseball back. But instead, they had to go through all these crazy steps to get there. And we do that in our own lives. We, instead of just knocking on the door and asking God for forgiveness and for what we need and not want, we go and do all these different steps because we think we can do it a different way. Well, understanding Scotty's predicament, Mr. Myrtle sees this damaged baseball, and he reveals that he's himself a retired baseball player and knew Babe Ruth well, and offers Scotty a signed baseball, not only by Babe Ruth, but the entire 1927 Yankees team. And we do this with ourselves as well. We try and hold on to things and keep things that we necessarily don't need, but God can offer us so much more. But these boys did see it through. And not only did they get their baseball back, but they did receive much more. And not just the baseball with the many signatures on it, but they found that the beast's name was really Hercules, and he became the team's mascot. But they also had grown friendly with Mr. Myrtle, and they often went over there to listen to stories that he would tell. When we trust in God and see through the tough times, we can truly see everything He has given us. Ephesians 1, verse 18 to 20, it says this: I pray that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened in order that you may know the hope to which He has called you, the riches of His glorious inheritance in His holy people, and His incomparable great power for us who believe. God didn't bring you this far to just bring you this far. Well, yesterday at the Summers Point church, there was an Eagle Scout ceremony. Does anyone here know the depths it takes to go through an Eagle Scout ceremony? It's a lot of work. And just to be a regular Scout, you have to be these things that in today's world could be really tough, even though we may think that everyone should possess these traits. A Scout has to be trustworthy, they have to be loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. And those are just the basics. To be an Eagle Scout, it's so much more. Well, this Scout went through all the different ranks of tenderfoot, second class, all the way up to Eagle Scout. He had his 12 required merit badges, 19 elected ones, hours of service projects, 50 months in leadership positions. All together, he completed approximately 320 different requirements. It's a lot to see things through to the end. And that's a tough feat for anyone, let alone someone who's a teenager. I know I couldn't do it. I quit after the first year of Boy Scouts. Now, were there times where he thought he was going to quit? Probably. Were there times where he didn't think he could get to the Eagle Scout step? Probably. Did he see through and feel the blessings that God has given him through finally completing the achievement? I'm sure he did. In order to follow through and see things through, we need to do and follow everything that we learned these last couple of weeks. We need to let go of our anxieties and learn to breathe. We need to stay focused, even though we may get distracted, some more than others. And we have to have faith no matter what the report says. We need to see through because God didn't bring you this far to just bring you this far. He has so much more in store for you. Amen.